21st, if you'd arise for the pledge. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Item 2 is amendments to the agenda, and we do have an amendment to the agenda. It's going to be 7.3. It'll be authorizing a letter to our, it's a late ad, so you're going to get something handed to you here, I think, shortly. But it's a letter authorizing our Met Council reps to oppose the regional solicitation. So that'll be a presentation on 7.3. Otherwise, everything
Mr.
is
Chair, I will
same.
make a motion to approve the agenda with the amendments.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're on now to recognition of interested citizens. This is limited to items that are not on the agenda, usually 5 minutes per person per subject. Did I miss something?
The minutes, yeah.
Oh, okay, I gotta go back. Sorry. Item 3, I jumped over.
Mr. Chair, I will make a motion to approve the minutes.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Now we're on to recognition of interested citizen. You'll probably understand why I flubbed up and jumped over to this one, because I've been thinking about this one myself, because I will be saying something, but I'm going to give the audience first shot at saying anything during this segment. Okay, I'm going to use this as a personal, I won't go to the podium, but and visualize me being at the podium. I wanted to announce that I will not be running again for the office of County Commissioner. It's been an honor and privilege to share, to serve with the residents of Scott County, to serve them, and it's been an honor and privilege to work alongside of my fellow county commissioners and staff. And it's been an honor and privilege to share in the many successes that we've all had working together. And I've been thankful for the opportunity I've had. You know, and after 26 years, this is my 26 years, I can remember standing over here when we were handing out plaques for tenure awards. And I would, you know, there'd be people in the 20s and 25 and 30, and I go, how could you possibly be in one place this long? And that was just breezed by. But it's time for me to pass the baton. I used to be a runner, and so I'll use that term, to someone else that will really serve the residents of Scott County well. And so it's been a fun and rewarding endeavor, and I'm really grateful and thankful for the opportunity of that. That's it. So,
Thank you.
thank you. All right. Anyone else want to share into this item? Okay, we're on to the consent agenda. These generally pass as one motion. And I'll read the consent agenda. 5.1 is to adopt resolution 2026-58, adopting the operating procedures for the Scott County Watershed Management Organization Water and Natural Resources Citizen Committee. Adopt resolution 2026-62, approving a rezone of 30 acres from A1 Ag Preserve District to A3 Ag Preserve Density District, and preliminary and final plans of Warner Farm, David and Connie O'Brien applicants and property owners. Adopt resolution 2026-71, authorizing a budget amendment and entering into agreement with Pearson Brothers for the 2026 Seal Coat Program. Adopt resolution number 2026-72, authorizing into an agreement with Gopher State Seal Coat, Inc. for the 2026 Trail Preventive Maintenance Project. 5.5, adopt resolution number 2026-74, authorizing a lawful gambling offsite premises permit for St. Patrick Athletic Association in Cedar Lake Township. 5.6, adopt resolution number 2026-75, authorizing application for statewide prevention of wasted food and food rescue grant, and if awarded, accepting the grant and entering into an agreement with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, adopt resolution 5.7, number 2026-76, authorizing into an agreement with the Stratus Building Solutions for the cleaning services at the Integrated Health Center building. Excuse me. 5.8, adopt resolution 2026-83, authorizing into cooperative agreements with Helena, Jackson, and Louisville townships for participation in the 2026 Seal Code program. 5.9, adopt resolution number 2026-86, authorizing a budget amendment and entering into an agreement with Icon LLC for the County Highway 21 and Southbridge Parkway Pike Lake Road Intersection Improvement Project in the city of Shakopee. 5.10, adopt resolution number 2026-87, approving an amendment to the Scott County zoning ordinance number 3, chapter 2, administration to define process for revoking conditional and interim use permits. 5.11, adopt resolution number 2026-88, authorizing into an agreement with Axon Enterprise Inc. for the county attorney's evidence.com. 5.12, adopt resolution number 2026-94, approving a 3-year agreement with the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 49. 5.13, approve payroll processing of personnel actions. 5.14, approve record of disbursements and approve claims. That's our consent agenda. Do we have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Mr. Chair, I'll move to approve the consent agenda, and then I have one comment.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion and second, now discussion.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Very much in favor. I just wanted to call out 5.10, the amendment to our zoning ordinance about the process for revoking CUPs and IUPs. It's been a long discussion with township chairs, township supervisors. I think our planning and zoning department did a good job defining this process and holding the public hearing and making a good change that will make it easier when people aren't adhering to their permits. So thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. 6.1 is to receive information on Scott County delivers topic, solid waste. You gonna start us off, Katie?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Good morning. Today, our Scott County Scott Delivers conversation is regarding solid waste, so the responsible management of our waste. First and foremost, I'd like to thank the group for their hard work on this packet and their charts. They worked really hard to create some new ones to really help encourage a good conversation. I would like to also point out that we have a special guest from Dakota County, so thank you to Dave Magnuson for spending some time with us this morning. We're going to have just a number of questions and to have hopefully a good conversation regarding this topic, but I'd invite you, if you have anything you'd like to share with the commissioners, feel free to say something right now.
Oh, right now.
If
Okay.
you'd like, no pressure.
Thank
No
you,
pressure.
thank you for having me. I'm the waste regulation supervisor at Dakota County, and Commissioner Ulrich, I've been 35 years at Dakota County, so.
Uh-oh, maybe I should rescind.
First thing I just want to say is you're well aware of the partnership between Dakota County and Scott County for the Recycling Zone Plus. We've been working on this for a long time. Kate and her team have been just amazing, and we're so grateful for this partnership. This project, I think, is gonna be really appreciated by both Scott County and Dakota County citizens, and it's going to be much more cost effective because of our partnership. So thank you, and we really appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dave. We'll take a moment just introducing ourselves. Please state your name and where you're from, just like Dave did. I'll start. I'm Katie Malika with Quality Improvement in Scott County.
I'm Chris Loggy with Transformation and Enterprise Services.
Molly Bruner, Director of Community Corrections.
Brian Beasley, Facilities.
Nick Righteous, Environmental Services.
Joan Anderson, Environmental Services.
Richard Jones, Environmental Services.
Kate Sodlaczyk, Environmental Services.
And Mr. Chair and Commissioners, any foundational questions you'd like to ask before we get the conversation started?
Go
All right.
ahead.
With that, thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris, we'll start with our first question.
Thank you. I have a question on page 8 on this slide. I have actually two questions on this. The first one, I noticed in 2024, it looks like the target went down from 63% to 58%. So I was curious if you could kind of expand on that. And then my second question is, what are some things that we can do to make sure that we continue with these increases that we're seeing in order to reach the goals by 2030?
Nick, so when we didn't go around, I should, so Nick is our solid waste coordinator, Joan, hazardous waste, and Richard HHW. So Nick, I think you'd probably be
Yeah.
the best to take this question.
Yeah, so the target line there represents kind of the MPCA's solid waste metro planning goals. The only goal that I know of set in statute currently is the 75% recycling rate by 2030. So the 24 goal went down in the metro plan because when they came out with the new plan here recently, I believe it was 24 from the state, they just moved some of those targets around depending on what type of material it was. So recycling went down, but waste to energy went up. They also went, I think the previous plan from the state was maybe a 1% landfill rate, and they kind of realized that might not be a realistic goal. So that went from probably 1 to, was it 5%? So that was a change in the state's planning process for solid waste. And then the other question was, what can we do to
Continue to see the increases.
I think from my perspective, the biggest low-hanging fruit to really move the needle with regards to increasing recycling is capturing organic waste, especially food waste organics. That's currently 25 to 35% of the MSW waste stream that's going in our landfills, and it's a large contributor to greenhouse gases, especially methane releases from landfills. So we've got some programs coming soon, hopefully, to collect more organics in Scott County and the Metro and the state of Minnesota. So as we collect more organics, we'll see that recycling rate increase.
Thank you.
And so as the state has moved the target a little bit, so this measure goes to show how the recycling rate is calculated, and that has that factors into our rate. Could you go into that a little bit?
Yeah. Are you talking about the slight downward trend maybe? So yeah, as you can see, there is a slight downward trend on recycling rate from 2011 to 2024. There's a couple of reasons for that. Throughout the planning process, the state may define different materials that we can count towards our recycling rate. Previously, we could count industrial scrap metal from, like, say, a large manufacturing process, and that might be a fifth of our total recycling rate by percentage, 10,000 to 15,000 tons. And back in 2020, the state said, we know that's always been recycled. It's really not. So we don't want you to count those industrial tons anymore. So we saw a recycling rate go down because of that in 2020. Also, as we work to reduce packaging weights and densities, so plastic water bottles have gotten lighter. Packaging from our cardboard boxes have gotten lighter and things like that. So although we're recycling more of our waste by numbers and items, maybe the total weight which we calculate our rate is going down.
Staying on that topic, what are some other, like from a resident perspective or citizen perspective, either misconceptions or things that we could still do better? So you mentioned like water bottles, that was a big thing, limit that. What are some other things that could be done?
With regard to increasing our recycling rate, I think public education is probably the most important thing, and I think we do a good job here at Scott County working with our partners and organizations to get the message out. But what you can put in your recycling bin at home or even here at work changes pretty regularly. As technology changes, it really comes down to when we have single sort recycling on everything goes in one bin, what the recycling facilities such as DEMCON can capture that you put in there. So we're seeing that change even recently. Waste Management's material recovery facility in the Twin Cities just announced that they're going to start collecting paper cups. which is something that we've never been able to recycle regionally. So we'll see that change coming here soon. So as new technology comes online for that sorting process and also production of materials, there's a state statute coming out with regards to, is it packaging, Dave? EPR, which will state by a certain date, I can't remember, is it 2032? Everything sold will have to be in a recycled package, or a package that is recyclable, or reusable or compostable. So, and then of course, there'll have to be technologies to capture that and then manage that to increase opportunities for recycling.
Can I, okay if I add something? So this is obviously not, this is Dakota County. But when it comes to the recycling, and so in Dakota County, we've done some waste sorts, and still after all these decades of working on it, there's still just as much recyclables put in the trash as there is put in the, and residential especially. Our residential recycling rate in Dakota, our overall recycling rate is comparable to Scott County, but our residential recycling rate is about 25%, right? When you look at it, just that. So curbside, there's just as much recyclables put in the trash as there is put in the recycling bin. And it comes down to choices. These are just pop cans and pop bottles, right? That's it. Maybe a beer can or a wine bottle once in a while as well, but people are not putting them in their bin. It's not that they don't have the opportunity, it's just they're not doing it. And I don't know if somebody can figure out how to change people's behavior, but that's what it is. It's just people's choices. There's nothing in the recycling waste, in the stream, the process stream that holds up that. I know some people think that, oh, I throw it in my recycling bin and it goes in the trash anyways. Not true. We regulate them. We have a couple of MRFs, material recovery facilities in Dakota County. We inspect them to make sure this stuff doesn't go in the trash. So I don't know how you change the behavior. But one more thing on that product stewardship is, so not only does the packaging have to be more recyclable, but the manufacturers have to contribute to pay for the collection of recyclables. So in the next few years, we're going to start seeing money flowing back to the counties if we have recycling programs, or to the haulers. The mechanism isn't in place yet, but there's going to be funding to help pay for the recycling programs.
We have a question here.
Why not just throw everything into one bucket? One truck, one bucket, all goes through the recycling belts or whatever. Could we ever do that?
They had that, it was called the Dirty Murph 20, 30 years ago, where everything went through a sorting line. I'm not sure why they went away from that, Dave. That was well.
It probably
before my
worked
time.
really good.
I know. Commissioners, it comes to the quality of the recyclables, is that when you have taken this nice paper, right, this stuff's very valuable, this office paper, and you throw it in a garbage truck and it gets mixed with food waste and trash and everything else, and you try and separate out later, it might be recyclable, but the value of it is probably 1 or 2% of what the value was prior when it's source separated. So separated by the generator. So yeah, you can, Ramsey County is going to do some of this with their organics sorting. And this is going to end up going to maybe anaerobic digester, right? To be produced in the natural gas. It's never going to be turned into paper again, right? It has to be collected, separated at the source to really be good quality paper.
Because some people, they put a lot of stuff into recycling anyhow. And some of it gets, they put a milk bottle in there and some of that stuff just seems to drip or what, right? Or, I don't know.
Commissioners? Yeah, of course. I mean, nothing's perfect. If people put all the recyclables in the bin they're supposed to put, and they prepped them all the way they're supposed to prep, it'd be a much more successful system. But it's still a much lower contamination level, because if you go to a MRF and you watch, most of the paper and cardboard is easily separated from the rest of the stream. It's not so wet that they can't do that.
Okay.
I've got a question about Dakota County. In Dakota County, do they pick up recycling every week?
Mr. Chair, yes. We have an ordinance put in place in 2019 with an implementation date of 2022 that all haulers have to offer weekly recycling. Now, customers don't have to put it out. We don't have the recycling police, but the haulers do have to offer. We did, after implementation, we did exempt the rural parts of the county because the haulers did some analysis to show that it actually costs, it's more harmful to the environment to run those trucks once a week in those less dense areas than in the suburbs. So we granted that variance. But most of the county and the vast majority of the population have weekly recycling.
Thank you.
Can I ask a follow-up question kind of on what you said? So are you able to tell, like, from the different areas within the county? I know you said like the residential maybe isn't recycling as much, but are you able to tell within Scott County or Dakota County which areas are recycling more and which are less, so that you could target the education to the ones that maybe aren't as compliant or
Yeah.
willing to recycle?
Yeah, so all counties in Minnesota are required to do a score report annually, which is, look at our solid waste numbers, both recycling and what goes to landfill, and kind of get an understanding of how much we've generated, where's it going. All of our haulers that work in our respective cities and communities report to the state. And then I will go through that and look and kind of compare cities versus each other, and communities, and then counties versus counties. So, Scott County's, we're very similar to the rest of the metro counties. We're about 52 to 54% usually for recycling rate. Like Dave said, our residential routes are probably closer to that 25 to 32, I think, is what I usually see when I take those communities. All of our communities do a good job here in Scott County. But there are differences between those communities like Shakopee and Jordan that have what they call organized collection. So you have one hauler. So that hauler is able to come in and provide education that's consistent across the board to all of the residents using that service. Whereas like a city like Belle Plaine has 3 different residential haulers. So we do see higher recycling rates in those organized cities. Less trucks on the road and higher recycling rates. So there is a benefit to some of those programs.
Okay, I'll forget it if I don't make a comment now, because you're talking about high recycling rates, and it seems to me if we picked up every week, that's one thing, and then if we required the people picking up, if they see a recycling can without the sticker on top that tells you what can go in there, they have to stop, get out, and put the sticker on. So that every can in our county gets the sticker of what can be recycled on top of the can, so it's information to the public, and I think every week. Okay, so that's my little soapbox, but keep going.
So yeah, that's what I had for that.
Thank you.
In a similar vein, so we've been talking about the focus of people putting their recycling in the right bin, but can you talk to me more, because I know there's been different times depending on which hauler you're working with, different things seem like they can be recycled and other things can't. Can you talk more about like the logistics of those processing plants and how that impacts our rate of recycling?
Me again?
Well, this is a Scott County show.
I know. Well, you're doing such a great job, Dave.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, I mean, I think about back when I was a kid when we had to sort our recycling. So glass bottles went in one bin and plastic went in another and tin cans went in another. Now everything goes in one, which is great because we capture more recyclables that way. We also get more contamination, and because we're using mechanical machinery and industries to sort that, it can be limiting. Currently, so back in the day, you could put a Post-it note in your paper bin or your bag with paper, and that was going to get recycled. Well, now a Post-it note's too small. It's going to fall through the machinery at DEMCON or whatever MRF it goes to. Material Recovery Facility is what MRF stands for, and it's going to go out the end into the residual that then goes to the landfill. And currently, about 10% by weight annually goes into what they call contamination or residual, which is still great, right? So if we sent 80,000 tons to DEMCON's recycling recovery facility, we know that 90% of that is going to get sent to market and get recycled. So, but yeah, anything small, the term we use in our industry is smaller than your fist, or for paper, smaller than a credit card, is going to fall through the cracks. So that goes out, and what it does then is glass in the recycling facility gets cracked or broken, and that's how they sort the glass. So anything small then becomes a contaminant in glass as well. So when we're talking about education, that's a big piece, is what can go in there. But it makes it tough, right? Like I said, things change. How things get packaged and produced changes pretty regularly. So it's tough.
I can add to that. So it comes down to, I already talked about the people making the right decisions, putting stuff in the right bin. But I think the bigger issue is what the manufacturers choose to package stuff in. And this product stewardship hopefully will help that, because they're going to have to incur the cost. I have an example I like to use. So everybody knows a milk jug is that kind of, not real clear, but that plastic, right? Well, that's the natural color of that plastic, okay? Or a Tide Pod jug, same kind of plastic, but it's dyed red, right? So the stuff that's not dyed is worth 10 times as much on the recycling market as the stuff that's dyed. And I don't know about you, but if the Tide Pods jug was the same color as a milk jug with a red sticker, I'd probably still buy it, right? And it would literally be worth 10 times as much in the process, and the manufacturing cost for that product is lower because I don't have to purchase the dye and add the dye. So because of the producer's choice, they're increasing our cost by making the packaging more expensive, and they're reducing the value of the recyclable, both. So that's where I'm hoping this product stewardship helps, in that say, manufacturers, your choices matter. It's not just about marketing.
Question.
I still do put my laundry bottle in the recycling. I think that's one of the things that comes up a lot is, oh, I don't recycle that because it's not going to be sold. But it will be sold. It will be, it's just not a high value.
Correct.
Correct.
So I'm glad to see you guys' passion in this. In a previous, it's a dirty job, but 12 years ago, I had to oversee sanitation as one of my jobs as director. And I get, it was in a different state, but a whole different setup where the county actually owned the landfill and the city had to pay the tipping fees. And we went through this whole part, and everything you're doing as far as talking about communication, working together with your constituents, that's huge in making this successful. Very similar paths, but different ways. But that was 12 years ago, and so much changes when you look at recycling and how things are done. And so I was looking at like the household solid waste in number 9 and how much we generate in our house. One of the things that I think has changed is you look at deliveries, like Amazon and you name it, their packaging is completely different. I would say that you'd see that at the curb more than you would 12 years ago. Are there challenges because when you break down boxes that are that large, you have so much more styrofoam versus when you look at people that used to buy in the stores break it down, they're putting in large dumpsters, containers, a very much, I would say, a better way of recycling because all that's consistent. Where people run out of room in their bins and now they're stuffing it in other ones. Are you seeing that as challenges or how do you adapt to that?
I see it, I think, as a consumer, as a resident, or, a homeowner in Scott County, having the options to, when you talk about filling the bin, I'm always generating more recycling than I have room for at home. And it costs, my hauler charges me more money for another bin, so my wife and I don't have another bin. Because she's made that choice that one bin is enough. So what then I do is I have to find another location for that cardboard every week. So I have to drive it to a drop off. So to make that choice to make sure it gets recycled. So, we've talked about, I think, in our last plan, where Dakota County implemented weekly recycling collection. We're going to require that haulers provide a second recycling bin to all customers free of charge to make sure that residents have that capacity for those larger items, boxes, things like that, to make sure that we're not throwing away things that are recyclable. So,
And I'll just add, we know that that's an issue that, residents are facing, that they've got more recycling than their bins at home. So Richard can maybe speak to what's going on at our household hazardous waste facility, where we are one of those sites that will collect cardboard. For better or worse, we do. I don't know if you can speak to how many people come in and drop off their cardboard. And then I believe the RZP collect cardboard too? Okay. So we're trying to collect or provide other outlets for those areas of need where we know that 1 or 2 carts at home may not cover it.
Yeah, so at Scott County HHW, we did start collecting cardboard, shredded paper, and also plastic bags. And we get a ton of it. We actually might start, looking at increasing how many, cardboard bins we have available for pickup. We fill probably 2 every single week, like a 4-yard dumpster. So it is a very good program. We do see people driving in just with cardboard. It's a little awkward to manage, but I think the demand is definitely there.
And I think a follow-up we discussed about habits, you brought up habits. We had a tour of Amazon to see a little item get put in a big box, you know how that comes about. But there are options where you can either combine those items into one box as an option when you order from Amazon, or, you know, get a smaller one. So maybe there's an education opportunity there as well.
I have a question. In northern Minnesota, Itasca County, really a resident has two options. They can pay for traditional garbage pickup, or they can take their garbage to a waste transfer station. Ironically enough, Demcon runs the one up there in Itasca County. Would that ever make sense in a metro area where people would have an option? You know, they could pay to bring their garbage or recycling to a waste transfer station, and there are these gigantic dumpsters, you know, I don't know if they're 30 or 40-yard dumpsters that they have at the waste transfer station. But it seems to me that that might be a way to increase recycling if, you know, it's not gonna be coming to my house for almost 2 weeks. You know, could I bring it to a waste transfer station or so forth? That's one question. Then I'll throw out another question that's unrelated. I'm just wondering how much we're requiring of industry or commerce. If a business sells TVs, do we have a requirement for them to take back electronics? If some store sells paint, do we have a requirement for them to take back, you know, waste paint? I don't know if you can comment on either one of those, that would be good.
Commissioner, with regards to like local drop-offs, you know, we don't have a county-sponsored transfer system or drop-off, but we do provide some incentives to some of our local partners to have those, to offer those programs to our residents. We work with Buckingham companies to provide an organics collection food waste drop-off there, and they are also provide some grant funding for them to offer a free recycling drop-off to residents. So their facility is open 5 days a week, and I believe Saturday, so 6 days a week, including Saturday mornings. So if you have extra recycling, not just cardboard, but mixed recycling, plastics, cans, you can go use that facility for free, and that's funded in part by county grant, recycling grant funding. We do provide funding to other cities for their cardboard drop-offs, like Jordan. So we currently we've got 6 cities with, 5 of the 6 cities with cardboard collection drop-offs in their communities. Like I said, Buckingham takes mixed recycling as well as cardboard and organics. And then Demcon does have a public drop-off for waste, although it does, Demcon and Buckingham does charge. So we don't have any free drop-off options for mixed municipal solid waste, but we do for cardboard and some recyclables.
Mr. Chair, so in Dakota County, so a number of years ago, we modified our ordinance to allow for these small drop-off places without a license fee. We don't subsidize it like you do, but we do offer at least reduced regulatory environment. They just have to tell us they're doing it, and we might pop in every once in a while to check on it. So there's no requirement in Dakota County that a resident has garbage service. But if it's provided, they have to have both garbage and recycling. They're not particularly busy, though. So while they're available, they're not a popular option. So it doesn't seem to move the needle very much, at least in Dakota County.
I can say too that I think the cities still require that waste is picked up at the curbside. It's a requirement of Shakopee, at least. I'm assuming that the other ones are still requiring that. So if the resident is paying for waste to be picked up, I don't know. I wouldn't go on and drive around and try to find a place for my waste if I know that I can get it in the curb.
Mr. Chairman, I can just go, you had mentioned a program for paint where manufacturers or businesses that sell have like some sort of a buyback program. So I just want to comment to what you were saying. One of those programs that we've had ongoing for quite some time is Paint Care, where there are a few businesses here in Scott County where they will bring back paint and then we are reimbursed for the paint. These programs are critical for helping with our operating costs at the HHW. And I know that the legislature right now is looking at e-waste and batteries. And we don't want to get into batteries quite this early, but any bill that we can help where we're getting assistance for batteries, we fully support. I think we brought in 15,000 pounds of batteries last year. This is a labor intensive for us to manage those. So if there's some way those in the battery industry should have to provide us with some revenue or funding to help us with the cost of disposal, it would be much welcome.
That's a perfect segue because on page 18, there is a chart talking about the Metro County solid waste fees compared to waste and not landfill. I was wondering for whoever is comfortable, if you could kind of talk us through this chart and what are some factors you see that impact both the cost and then the percent that is landfilled.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I can talk about that since I put the chart together. So, yeah, so page 18 just shows the total percentage of waste landfilled compared to our annual cost per household in a cost that the county charges to the residents for solid waste management, whether that's through a solid waste assessment like Scott County charges our residents and uses for our HHW program, or a solid waste service charge or fee like Hennepin and Ramsey and Washington counties use. So, and what this just shows is, and I did this per household, so it's kind of to try to equal out across the counties. But as you can see, the more fees and taxes a county collects here in the metro, the less waste, or the less waste they're sending to landfill, or the more waste they're recycling. So Ramsey and Washington collect the most fees per household, but as you can see, they're diverting almost all of their waste from the landfill.
So I live in Dakota County, so I like to see it's zero. I'm just wondering, like, if what's going on there?
I'm just very efficient.
Oh, that's wow. That's great.
Dakota County is the landfill county. So 3 of the 4 largest landfills in Minnesota are in Dakota County, and we charge host fees. And so it may look like we don't collect any money. We collected $11.1 million in host fees last year from the landfills. So not only does it fund our department, not just my work group, but our department, it also feeds into our parks department, trails, and other stuff that money helps fund. I also have a fairly large amount of license fees that we collect. So my work group has $1.1 million in license fees. And then those revenues that Kate talked about helps offset our household hazardous waste program. So my little work group of 7 people brought in like almost $15 million in fees last year. And so that's why we don't have to, that's why it looks like we don't charge our households anything.
So a little perspective to that. So you said 1 million in license and permit fees?
Yeah.
And Scott County is 200,000. A significant difference, and that's because of the businesses in Dakota County.
Sure. Thank you.
And I will mention on the host fee, so although Dakota County residents are paying a host fee for every ton of waste that gets landfilled in Dakota County, so is our trash that goes to Dakota County. And depending on the year, between 60 to 70% probably goes to Dakota County. So not only are residents paying our solid waste fee, but we're also paying a host fee that then goes to Dakota County for Dave to use, or for, excuse me.
It's all my money. And that's one of the things our commissioners like, is that more than 75% of the waste that's, well, they like and don't like, more than 75% of the waste that's landfilled in Dakota County is not generated in Dakota County. So they don't like all this non-county waste coming to the county, but it pays fees. It actually pays higher fees per ton than waste generated in our county. So the vast majority of that $11 million was paid for by other county generators.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, we're just on this same slide. I guess I would like, this has probably been figured out, but of course, I wish our percent of MSW landfilled was much smaller. But when we look at Hennepin's, if HERC closes or when HERC closes, what is that percentage expected to be? Because, you know, obviously, I think a lot of Hennepin waste right now isn't landfilled because it's burnt. I mean, is it 80? Is it, what's the projection on that?
So Commissioner, right now, I believe Hennepin generates about 700,000 tons a year, and they're burning or incinerating about half of that, so about
Okay.
350,000 tons. So they are currently landfilling about half of their waste, but we could see that go up tremendously if the HERC were to close.
So I think part of, to the question of where will that go, we have been discussing that. So right now, Scott County only has a demo and industrial landfill. There is a possibility in the future that it would take MSW. I don't know if Dakota County has had discussions, which currently has a permitted landfill, if that waste could go to Dakota County.
Currently, it could. There's no legal reason it couldn't, and there's the capacity. Hennepin County has estimated that probably 75 to 80% of the waste would come to Dakota County if you just look at the drive distance and the current cost for disposal. That would be about 700 or 800 tons a day coming to probably Burnsville Sanitary Landfill, easiest to get to and probably the most likely one that would want it. So it would actually reduce the capacity, the lifetime capacity of Burnsville Sanitary Landfill by 30 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you. I just wanted to say that probably if that happens, we won't be the worst on that.
So I was looking at 20 again. I think we talk about recycling, but environmental is a huge part of what you guys do and long-lasting and impactful. You look at like a federal level, DOE went to LED, which is taking a lot of the fluorescence and the hazardous that come with that to the landfills. If I look at EPA changed oil-based to a lot of latex. Are there any other changes that, like at a local level, that could be changed? Because I'm gonna say the hard one, plastic bags, you know, they mess up recycling as I know it. When I had a tour of DEMCON, they say they get stuck in the belts. They're the biggest nemesis of recycling. I just wonder, is there a local or even at a larger level, are there other impacts that have changed? Environmental and recycling that way, or what we could do at a local level?
So I'll kind of kick this off and you can talk to that. So what can we do at the local level? One of the great things about Scott County is we partner with all the different stakeholders, and we went and talked to DEMCON, and they, just as you said, they said, here's our problems, it's the tanglers, it's this and that. And then we toured their facility, they came and toured our facility, and then we made some adjustments to see how we could help them at the local level, which started a few programs, if you could go into those, shredded paper and the plastic bags.
Yeah, so one of the programs that we have is we do take shredded paper at the Scott County HHW, and we kind of partner with DEMCON. And the reason we did that was they were seeing a lot of that coming through, and it was just shredded paper just going everywhere in the recycling center. So we just said, well, we could kind of divert it at the Scott County HHW. We can take the shredded paper. We'll still bring it to you later, but it'll be contained. It'll be in a Gaylord box. So it kind of helps them out in that way, the shredded paper.
And we take, you know, when we take an item at the HHW, we go through a process flow of decision-making, and we include our private industry so that we're not competing with them. So same thing with electronics and appliances and so on. We're like, okay, is this something we have, the public has spoken, they would like us to do this. Okay, should we? And we go through that. is it safe to take? Do we have the room to take it? And then we'll reach out and we'll ask Demcon, Buckingham, all of the facilities and haulers, what does this impact to you? And I feel like when we told them we would take e-waste and appliances, they were like, that would be great. Please do that. Instead of having that traffic going into their facility, it now condenses it into our facility. So like Richard said, even though we take it to our facility, we then kind of package it up nice, and then we take it to one of these private businesses, Demcon, Buckingham, JRs, who am I missing?
Yep, certified.
Certified.
Yep.
They prefer that way. They prefer that we, as their local partner, collect the waste that way.
So Dakota County's taken a little bit different direction on some of this. So obviously, public ed is important. Trying to change behavior is important. But if you look at the recycling rates over decades, it hasn't really changed a lot, right? And so we decided that we're going to take a more regulatory approach. Still continue with that, but so in 2019, we made in Dakota County, we made it illegal to throw a pop can in the trash. And it's illegal to throw a pop bottle. Any traditional curbside recycling, we have a list on our website. And it's illegal for residents as well as businesses to throw those in the trash. Now, I don't have a big recycling police force to run around looking at everybody's trash can. But along with that, Chair Alker, you mentioned this, we put requirements in place that if you have to have standardized labels, right? Every label in Dakota County is supposed to match. And if you have a trash can, you have to have a recycling bin sitting next to it. Paired containers are required. And for businesses, you can't throw food scraps in the trash. There's parameters around that. It's not every food scrap, but the larger food generators. You have to train your employees, right? It's required annually. And we have an inspector that does check these things. We can't visit everybody, but we're seeing progress on the food diversion and the containers and the education. There's more than 1 million trash cans in Dakota County, right? I guarantee not everyone has the right label on it yet, but I'll bet 95% of the curbside containers provided by haulers have the standardized labels on them now. Hopefully that helps. We expect it to take years to see it in the data, right? Because changing behavior is hard. But our past practice of changing behavior, I think, is kind of hit a plateau. And this is the only way we see it increasing.
So I just want to add on to what Dave was saying. Changing behavior is difficult to do, but like he was saying, only 25% is actually getting recycled and you go into it. People are just choosing not to do it. So I just wanted to add, we understand that, and the metro counties working together are working really hard to address that. Why are people choosing not to recycle? And we think it's a matter of education. They don't understand the consequence of it. You just put it in the garbage and you walk away and you're done there. But waste management is so much more complex than that, and we don't end there with just put it in the garbage. We are still dealing with the consequence of that. So we really feel like with education on the consequence of making that decision to do it or not to do it, and we also know a lot of people don't do it because they're scared of it. They've got a myth that it doesn't really go to recycling anyways, or they've heard about wish cycling, now they're afraid they're going to mess it up, or whatever their hang up is. The metro counties are now getting together. They're doing campaigns like a myth campaign, and we're working together to figure out what's working, what's not working. So Dakota County's taking a bit of a regulatory approach. So Scott County will watch. Is that working? Is that changing? And if it is, maybe that's the direction we'll go to. But all of the counties that get together with the state and they talk about what's working, what's not working, because we know that is the critical piece. Is how do we get into the homes and get them information that they need and make them understand the importance of the decision that they're making with their garbage. It's not just throw it away and gone. There's so many more things that are happening that are impacting them, their financial. They don't understand that there's a tax on that. They don't know that. And then they're impacting the future. So we're trying to work very hard together to change those behaviors.
And I think it takes a lot of staff to do that too, right? In Dakota County, you have a waste regulations unit, and you also have a recycling unit, correct? With probably another dozen staff.
Well, between the two, it's a dozen staff.
dozen staff that
Yeah.
just work recycling and solid waste.
Well, and hazardous waste.
And hazardous waste.
HHW, yeah.
So where our department probably doesn't have as many staff as Dakota. And we're a smaller county, both with geography and population as well. So we try to do what we can with our resources, and we do a good job, I think. But
We focused a lot about residents and having like them dealing with waste, but what about with small businesses? Page 26 refers to small quantity generators of waste participants per year that use the HHW. Joan, I was wondering if you could talk us through like why this chart is important and what you're seeing impact your downward trend of participants, but your upward trend of pounds per participant.
Yeah, so we recognized for a long time that small businesses have a hard time getting rid of their waste. It's expensive, and also it's just hard for them to get a waste disposal company to come out there because they're not getting that volume of waste. So we started our VSQG program for businesses, and it's really evolved over the years. We started years ago, we did a collection twice a year for fluorescent lamps. And then we moved to once a month, and we've continued improving on that program. Prior to COVID, we were doing the monthly collection, and then also we would have businesses come in by appointment that had hazardous chemicals to bring in. And part of that process is we provide them with shipping papers and make sure that they're able to transport the waste to us and meet DOT requirements as part of doing that. So a few things happened. One, we were seeing more businesses come in on the days without appointments. And for that, that's a safety concern, both because we didn't know what we were getting, and then they weren't transporting the waste safely and meeting those state or DOT requirements. So that was a concern. COVID happened, and then everything became appointment-based, which actually worked out well. So businesses have a process now where they have to go online, schedule appointment, and list what they're bringing in for waste so that we know ahead of time and we can make sure to get them that paperwork and have that process in place. And then part of that change also along the time has been the change in the waste we're taking in. So more businesses are switching to LEDs. More businesses have access to, for instance, battery recycling and things like that. So instead, we're seeing more chemical-based, right? More of your hazard corrosives, flammable liquids, and stuff like that their businesses are bringing in. So while we're seeing a decrease in the number of participants, we're actually seeing an increase in the amount of waste that's coming in. So we're still providing the service. It's still there when they need it. A lot of times these businesses don't need to bring in waste every year. It might be 2 years or 5 years. So we're there when they need it. And now, they're probably bringing in a little bit more waste at one time and more items too. So, yeah, we're still there to help them and hopefully provide that option.
Thank you. Let's see here, turning to page 16. I just recently found out about this program after talking to Kate about these grants that are offered and through businesses and recycling grant dollars. I know that you're going to come out to our juvenile alternative facility, hopefully in the near future, and teach us all about how we can improve. I was just wondering if there's an example of how this impacted a particular business. You could give an example of showcasing this particular program.
Okay, I'm gonna let Nick speak to it, but I just wanna, before he gets started on it, when you look at some of these slides, this one in particular, I think it shows that people, residents, businesses, this one's showing businesses, cities, et cetera, they do want to recycle, but there's two key things. It needs to be affordable, so we need to help them with some grant dollars to get it started, and then they need the education on how to do it. It seems simple, I'm going to recycle until you get into it, and then it's overwhelming, and we kind of lose them. So to have this, Nick can go into this WasteWise company that comes out and helps, like how do I start, what kind of, you gotta pair the containers, or people will just do it all wrong. So, but the grass over, if you look at the city cleanup and the business recycling dollars and et cetera, you go through these, what you're gonna see, the common theme is people wanna do the right thing, they just need to know how, and they might need some incentive, some grant dollars, et cetera, to help them get going. And then once they go, they're off and they're running. So, Nick, if you could explain the business recycling grant?
So as Dave said, Dakota County has quite a few staff that work in different programs such as multifamily and organics. And we partner with a company called Minnesota Wastewise, which is part of the Minnesota Chamber of Commerce, correct, Kate? Since I think about 2016 to do our business recycling outreach. They've worked in city government infrastructure and facilities. In the past, they've worked in schools, and they've continually worked with businesses on behalf of Scott County. So they will try to advertise every year to a certain subset of businesses that meet the requirements for the statutory requirement on which businesses need to recycle in Minnesota. They'll reach out to them and offer their assistance for education, coming out and doing a site visit, just as simple as providing, having a conversation with them and saying, this is what you guys can do better. And then they'll also help those individuals apply for a grant through our office or our department to help them start recycling. Specifically, we've worked with, grocery stores and large industry for, we've done a styrofoam densifier for a large industrial or large commercial manufacturer to recycle styrofoam. We've done balers to help increase plastic film recycling to keep that out of the or to keep that out of the MRF especially. We've worked on organics recycling programs at restaurants such as Pablo's downtown, here in Turtles. And then of course schools in the cities. So we've done a grant with the city of Prior Lake for recycling bins at their parks. So Wastewise has been a tremendous asset to Scott County to helping us, reach so many different types of organizations and get and help them to start recycling. So.
With respect to time, I know we're getting short, but I did want to ask you all about page 19. This is a chart showing the SCORE grant per metro county. And if someone could just please explain what the SCORE grant offers and what it's for, and then is this right-sized? Is this appropriate for the need?
I'm gonna take a shot at this, and then you two can help me. I created it, but I'll look to you two for the experts. So, recycling management, we get 2 grants from the state. One is the SCORE dollars, and one is SCORE.
LRDG.
Yeah, but SCORE stands for.
Select Committee on Recycling and the Environment.
Yes, thank you. So basically, the garbage that you throw away is taxed. That tax goes to the state, a portion of that stays with the state, and a portion of that goes to the counties. And that's divided out to the counties by population. We use those dollars to help us with our recycling programs. And what you're seeing here is that the SCORE dollars are staying relatively flat. We did get an increase. I believe that was approved in 24, either 23 or 24 for 25, but overall it stayed flat. The problem with that is that the state is asking us, all the counties and metro counties, to do a significant amount more to reach this 75% recycled by 2030. So the counties are having to come up with local funds, or try to find local funds, different ways to collect funding to keep these programs going and improving on them. So there's a little bit of concern of what we're being asked to do versus how much funding that we're getting from the state. Nick or Dave, anything to add to that?
No, I would just add that, like Kate said, this is a fee that everyone is charged on their garbage bill. It's 9.75% on a residential bill and about 17% on a commercial bill. It is it's a good thing as we work to reduce landfilling. We could reduce the amount of funding coming back to counties. So, of course, as we landfill more or fees go up, then the taxes go up as well, I suppose.
I can add something. So, to be more bluntly answer your question, it's not nearly enough money to do the work that the state requires us to do. And this is a tax charged to help cover this, and the state keeps some of it in the general fund. Every year, there's a legislative request that all the money collected that was intended for these programs actually goes to these programs. So any support towards that would be nice. But yeah, I don't have the exact figures, but we spend at least 3 times what we bring in. Just the household hazardous, this amount we bring in wouldn't cover our household hazardous waste program.
I think about 30% goes back to the 87 metro counties, about 37 stays with the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency, and about 30% probably goes to the general fund, I believe.
That ballpark sounds right. I don't know the exact figures.
So Ramsey in Washington County did a quick analysis on what percent the SCORE helps of their total program. It was like 25%. So I went and looked and checked. Same for Scott County. It only covers these, the state grants only cover 25 to 30% of our total cost. It's not enough. It's not nearly enough.
Thank you. Do we have any final last questions we'd like to ask before handing it back over to the commissioners?
15, sounds like you guys do a great work in outreach and educational visits. Can you discuss that a little bit and the successes in that?
So who's got 15?
15, so yeah, that goes along with WasteWise. That's the businesses that they're getting out to every year and making that initial contact. They, you know, for 2025, it shows that they did 40 visits. It's probably 3 times that amount that they actually contacted and talked to somebody over the phone or by email. But actually on site, you know, getting out there and talking to businesses was 40 in 2025. So like I said, WasteWise does a great job getting out there, making sure that businesses have what they need, making sure, like Kate said, bins are paired, properly labeled, things like that.
So engagement, that's huge, right? That they're participating and communicating and educating in it. That means they're still connected to the programs and what we're doing.
Absolutely, and another thing that WasteWise brings is, it's not, the businesses are sometimes more comfortable talking with WasteWise about what's really going on instead of someone from the county who they might hold back on what they're really doing because they're afraid there will be a consequence to that. So that's why WasteWise is kind of nice, but Nick really does work quite a bit with WasteWise, and they pair up and go out together because there's a lot. But again, it just shows that businesses are interested. They want to do the right thing. They're one of the big stakeholders in this whole solid waste complex because when you're recycling at home, we're starting to see that when people go out, they are now expecting their businesses to provide them recycling too. We're starting to see this a lot more, that the consumer is expecting their businesses to provide that. They want to see that.
I do cringe whenever I go somewhere and there's no organics bin because I'm used to it in this building, so that is true. I would just like to thank you all for spending some time with us. And I forgot to mention this earlier, but we also had Jeannie Given from the Minnesota Pollution Control Agency that was going to be on our panel. Unfortunately, she had an emergency and wasn't able to join us. But I would just highlight and appreciate both her willingness to do that and Dave's time and ability to be here as well. So with that, I'll turn it back to the board if you have any final questions.
Okay, questions or comments? Go ahead.
The MPCA has a metro plan that we have to adhere to. And in that plan, it says that the metro counties are going to get together and work on a solid waste plan collectively. And that's going to be coordinated by them. Is that something that's in the works that we know of?
Yes, Commissioner, that's my understanding. I reached out as of just a couple weeks ago to follow up on that. I had heard that they were hoping to have this in May, and now it's being pushed out to July. So fingers crossed that we do get this meeting together and get the commissioners, the joint commissioner meeting going. As we've talked about this many times, it's key that each county sits down and gets a very good understanding of what each are doing. As Dave sits with us today, like how much did we learn just by just an hour? So if we could have all the counties together talking about what's in their plans and what's their goals and what's their issues, it would just make a huge difference in our efforts to reach our recycling goal. So I heard July, and I'm hopeful for that.
Okay. I know that we meet, and I appreciate that Kate and Nick meet with me at the AMC Solid Waste Working Group. And I think the topic on this coming Friday is the metro area and the outstate area and how that
Works together.
what our differences are in that plan. And I just want to say that Shakopee is hosting their cleanup day this Saturday and I'll be there. I stand in the right lane, so if you want to come in and say hi to me, anybody. I take the money, so. In the right lane. No. No, not personally. Thank you. And I support a community advocacy group being formed. I know that DEMCON does some work on community advocacy, but, you know, I think we talked here about education and what makes a community understand solid waste, because it is very confusing, and things change all the time. You know, we talk about plastic and we talk about, you know, little pieces of paper and you know, I think how do we get our community educated on solid waste is really important. I think that's all I have.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks, everybody. This is such a big, important issue that I think we do talk about a lot in the community, but sometimes it gets sidelined by the more pressing matters as right now. So I just want to thank you for that. And I think even for me, when I think about this or explain it, I have to get back to the goal of we're recycling more and putting less in the landfill. That's what we're trying to do, because, you know, all this can get large and broad, and I find it helpful to narrow it down and be like, are we making a difference on those goals? These are just little things, but just because I'm thinking of it right now, I want to bring it up. Great to hear that WasteWise or folks from our place are coming to JAF, and I think about our partners a lot. We were recently at the ProAct new building, and ProAct being, you know, not a county service, but somebody we partner with a lot. I think they'd really, a visit with WasteWise or contact, there's really some opportunities there as they've moved into a bigger building, have a lot going on, and also a population that could be educated, you know, so helping them make sure that they're recycling as much as possible. I'm really glad to hear that we're cooperating with our colleagues, especially on the things like outreach and education, where we probably have the same messages. But just in my world, or especially my district of the county, I think that myth about recycling not actually getting recycled is still really key in this county. And I think the more we can get information out there, and it has to be short. I mean, I know we want to educate about the whole picture, but really short. And I think about the folks I know, our residents, our friends and relatives who actually are the folks who drive the trucks and pick up the recycling and pick up the garbage. I think they would be our best faces on any education or outreach. You know, there's, I can think of some that are, you know, in this county who've done it for all their lives, and for them to say it, I think they're much more credible than me or, you know, any of us sometimes to do that. So that was one thought I had. The other thing, I think just two things. One is with all the publicity about Washington Ramsey's medical waste, all that's going there, I think it's an opportunity for us to remind folks that Sharps containers and medical waste and things like that, much of it is accepted at our household hazardous waste, and it's just a really good opportunity to remind, as we have a lot of folks who need to rely on that type of equipment on a daily basis. So I think that's a great thing. And then finally, interesting talk about how much people are ordering now, delivery versus shopping. And I think that's another thing that my kids probably educated me on, like, Mom, do better in ordering. When you're ordering delivery and things be delivered at home, you can do better by not ordering every day, not, you know, choosing the days. I think that's another thing that will impact our recycling and our waste generation rate if people can do that. So really little things, but thanks for your work. Thanks for working together. I think especially as we're looking forward to meeting with Dakota County Board next week or in the near future we'll continue to talk about opportunities where we can be more efficient in this work, because we have the same goals in mind. And sure, different counties might take different approaches, but there's a big part of the pie that we that we could do together and do efficiently. So, thanks, everybody.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I just had a couple questions on, we talked briefly about that. Is the program called Paint Care? Paint Care, and that's where you go to Lowe's, Ace, wherever, Sherwin-Williams to buy a gallon of paint, that you're prepaying for its disposal?
Yeah, maybe I can talk about that a
Please.
little bit, Commissioner. Like at the Scott County HHW, part of our program is we do offer collection for latex paint and oil-based paint. That disposal cost is covered completely by Paint Care. So we don't have to pay anything for that disposal cost. That money does come from Paint Care, and that's the fee you see on like a gallon paint or a 5-gallon paint. So it's a really good program. And they have, I think Paint Care is nationwide, not all states, but scattered states. They're trying to get into a lot of other states. So.
But you don't bring the unused product or whatever back to the retailer. It has to, or can you?
You can. There is some retailers set up for the program, yes.
Okay, so it's a, in Minnesota at least, it's a uniform fee that you pay, that people pay.
Yes.
Some retailers or wholesalers, whatever, do take it back right there?
Yes.
But not all. So it's not a
Yes.
requirement.
No.
You're paying the fee, but it's not necessarily take it back to that spot.
Yes.
And I'm just wondering, that and the cardboards or anything. I'm wondering, I know we've done some social media or pamphlets or whatever. I live not far from Buckingham, so I oftentimes will take my cardboard because I get to push the button on the compactor and wow, it's cool. Do we have things like little placards, like right at the flash point where if somebody's coming to the HHW with a load of cardboard, like they've made the decision, we're hauling, we're going to HHW, what day is it open, at what hour? I live in PL or wherever, and as part of my garbage disposal, I can use that facility. Like just placards or something, we're talking about trying to change behavior. It's difficult, I get it, human nature. But if you're meeting people that are actually making the decision to do that, and here's just another option. Or like mattresses, I know we talked about, take them here, there, and we're gonna have a groundbreaking soon too, I think, maybe next week or whatever. To be able to meet people where they are literally at, like these people are doing this just so that they know they have other options. The paint thing, cardboard, whatever else. I know some retailers have battery disposal. Just trying to get that message out. Like if those people that have self-selected that they're gonna do that, they might receive that and be ambassadors as a byproduct. Do we do that now?
I kind of want to plug our HHW flyer, which we've put in the scene. Typically, it's being published once a year. We try and put as much information as we can in that. And one of the sections right in the middle of that guide, in that book, is actually a guide as far as, if you want to dispose of a mattress or cardboard or shred paper or whatever it is. We have quite a few businesses on there, and it talks about like whether there's a fee, whether there's not a fee, whether it's accepted or whether it's not accepted. So that's definitely a location that people can go and look at. Also on the website, on the HHW website and solid waste, there's also an app on there, the Waste Navigator, and that's a pretty good resource as far as figuring out who takes what.
And I will say, I remember the pamphlet. It was more than just a brochure. I kept it because I'm like, this is gonna come in handy someday. Where did I put that?
On your fridge.
Maybe. So those are just things that again, meeting people where they're making those decisions and they're a little more probably willing to take that information in. So just a minor thing. Sure. And then I like the idea, and I don't know if we're doing this, because we can learn from our neighbors, like we're having these joint board meetings. Who knows, there could be a transition of counties coming someday, we'll see. But thinking like that, what can we learn from each other and not duplicate efforts? The uniform recycling sticker. I went and got an honorary PhD so that I knew that if I'm in this retailer or in this county or in this city and I had to read these garbage containers, like, oh, wait, this foil goes in here. Oh, this food with an X on it goes here. This, you get my point. It's like all these stickers are like, where do I throw it? Put it in the hole. I did not get an honorary PhD in this. Do we do anything like that here with those uniform stickers? Because and then you go to some retailers and you're like, holy cow, they got a lot more, granular. So it's like, wow, we got 7 options here. And
Yeah, we absolutely do, and I'm gonna let Dave and Nick speak to that. Like Dave was saying, they have a required message. The metro counties agree, and so they try to keep the consistent message. Nick, can you go into the stickers and the labeling?
Yeah, so we, we've been providing recycling labels for bins and cans for the last probably 10 years. I think Steve started that. And we've consistently, partnered with the other metro counties to make sure we have the same or similar message. So currently our recycling labels that we're using and a lot of the images and language is identical to Dakota County because we have a lot of schools that cross county borders. We've made the decision to use the same label between our counties, between Dakota and Scott, so.
yeah, I think that's a good start. And then every retailer or whoever's selling cans on Uline or whatever, feel like they have their own labels coming out. So it just feels like to really capture as much as we could, like some sort of a statewide something just to make it more simple and, because people are not gonna sit there and make that decision longer than a half a second before it just goes in an open hole, usually. Maybe I'm speaking for myself, but I don't think so.
I think you're right, Commissioner. We're working hard on that. We're part of the Recycling Education Committee here. It's a statewide group between all of the solid waste haulers, counties, cities, recycling professionals. So we meet quarterly on that and discuss things just like that.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just want to add a couple things, like all of our staff should have their recycling Sasquatch, I'm not a myth, on their computers, right? Every one of our staff received one of those, compliments of Nick to remind us. We also are part of the regional Facebook posts, right, that talk about not being a myth. Is it a dragon or something that we put out there every once in a while? So yeah, we are cooperating and working. We are going to have at least a 30-minute session on solid waste with Dakota County at our board meeting next week, and want to thank them. We had a really good meeting with Commissioner Workman, Droste, and George and Heidi, with Commissioner Wolf on swim club and the pros and cons of meeting at to Commissioner Brennan's point on the elected officials meeting on new technologies and what each agency was doing. And that got lost along the way. And so how does that get replicated and how does that move forward? I don't have as much faith in the MPCA maybe as Kate does that this is going to happen, but we'll continue to push on that. So yeah, we are partnering at the region. We are going to talk about it next week. It will be one of the most extended parts of our conversation. And I do want to thank Dave. I won't bring up the anthrax cows. It's how we met about 30 years ago. But thank you for coming and participating and being part of this, so.
All right, well, thank you for this presentation. Thank you for your good work. Keep it up. And have a good day. We're on to 7.1, so Molly Bruner will be up to present to us. And I think our amended item is coming before us, 7.3.
Was this sent to us at one point, part of this?
I don't know. Might have been sent this morning.
No.
No?
All right, good morning, Mr. Chair, Commissioners. I am here to talk about treatment court and possible next steps for treatment court. I want to start out by saying that the Scott County Treatment Court was first established in 2016, and at that point in time, it was designed to intervene in the chemically dependent lifestyles of our drug and alcohol addicted clients. The goals of specialty court, or this one in particular, are and have been to reduce recidivism, of course, prevent overdose deaths, reduce collateral damage against families and community, reduce costs to the criminal justice system, and then help the community and our clients become productive, responsible members of our community. And this has happened. I'm happy to say that. When it first started, it was a federal grant, and it shifted over the years to state funding that has assisted in paying for this particular program within our county. However, recently we did a third-party evaluation of the Scott County Treatment Court, and what we found was that we started to have comparable safety outcomes through standard supervision. And there's several reasons that that may be going on. First of all, I would backing up in terms of how probation and supervised release in Minnesota, if you go back 20, 30 years or so, it had a much more punitive approach to that model. It was the late 80s and the early 90s that the specialty courts also started to be created and get stood up across the nation, not just in Minnesota. And it was meant to look at the clients that were being sent to prison specifically that were chemically addicted in some way and say, is there a better way that we could be working with individuals that have better results, have less cost to the system, and prevent incarceration? And so specialty courts, and including the one here in Scott County, have shown that we've helped a lot of people, and it has been an exceptional program and still is to this day. Another thing that has shifted, so probation, what we've done then over the last few decades is we've shifted how we're doing standard probation to a similar, not exactly, but a similar approach to what you might see in specialty courts, where we are trying to have a balance of accountability and rehabilitation, right? And so we're whether you're in treatment court or on standard supervision, if you have addiction issues, we're working on similar goals. We're working on treatment, we're working on mental health, we're working on, using tools such as EHM and drug testing, mental health services. So the similar things that are being targeted or in treatment plans for clients, really, we shouldn't see a big difference. If you need the help, you need the help. And the second thing that's shifted over the years is sentencing guidelines have shifted in the state. So where we saw in the beginning there were a lot more clients that might have been referred or committed to prison are not happening at the high rate that was happening at that time as well. So we're seeing a decline in people being referred and being accepted. Even those that are referred, we're seeing a higher level of rejections as well. So we hired this third-party evaluation to come in and look at a comparison group, those that are on supervision, and then those that have been successful and unsuccessful in treatment court. And we came to a county board workshop and presented the results of that. And again, what we saw is between 2016 and 2024, 86 adults were served by the Scott County Treatment Court. So it averages around 10 to 11 people a year. When we look at the volume of people we can serve on a high-risk probation caseload, we're looking at 30 to 40 a year. So just if we have similar results, we can serve more people with the standard supervision model than in treatment court, especially at the rates that we're accepting people at this time. What we found out through that study was that especially at the 2-year mark, that people that are successful on probation and people that are successful on treatment court have similar, they're 84% crime-free. So what it's showing is that we may be able to accomplish this in standard probation, and maybe at this point in time, the treatment court model isn't needed, at least here in Scott County. So from that workshop, the board, you asked us to partner up and meet and talk about, is there an alternative model that could work that still accomplishes the same thing? We don't want to see worse outcomes. We don't want to see a decline at all in what we're providing. And so that's what we did. And so in collaboration with the county attorney's office, with the chief public defender's office, we met with judges, we met with our county administrators. We started to talk about, could we do this on standard supervision? Again, maybe meet or help more people at a reduced cost. And what we found out is that we think we can. What we would like, this is another slide about the different times that we all met with different team members. I also met with the overall treatment court team as well to review the third-party evaluation and have discussions about that as well. And what we think will work is that we want to transition, so sunset treatment court as it stands, and shift some of the money from the treatment court budget to the community corrections field budget. So that would be shifting one probation officer, and what we would do is we would continue to have an enhanced drug supervision caseload, or people that are chemically addicted. And we would still, we would retain some of the money for the UA testing, urine analysis testing, and the electronic home monitoring, and some mental health supports as well. So if we shifted that probation officer and some of the dollars to the community corrections budget, the other piece that is being asked in the RBA today is that we make the Veterans Court Coordinator whole. So right now, what you have is a 0.5 Treatment Court Coordinator and a 0.5 Veterans Court Coordinator. Since the request is to sunset Treatment Court, we get state funding that supports a 1.0 Veterans Court Coordinator without using levy dollars. So it would just be offsetting some of the expenses and utilizing that money. As a reminder, our Veterans Court is a First Judicial Court Veterans Court, and so we're getting the money here in Scott County to support fully the First Judicial Court, Veterans Court. And so we would continue to do that by making this coordinator whole. And so this is what it would look like financially if we were to do this. So our 2026 budget is listed there, and what you will see is that we have the $425,683 in total expenses and how that revenue offsets those expenses. The ask in the RVA is to transition some of the money, so $20,000 in levy, continue to use the $152,500 in opioid dollars, and the estimated $9,000 that we receive in client fees to transition from the treatment court budget to the field. We would ask for that 1.0 treatment court probation officer to shift and continue those services, but just some of the money for mental health services and program allocations to support that higher level testing and the supports we need from our mental health center. And then, of course, the equivalent of the internal allocation. So what we're looking for is taking $181,500 into the field budget. Then what we do for Veterans Court is, again, that does not have a shift in any sort of levy increase. We're just offsetting our expenses to support the 1.0 Veterans Court Coordinator for the First Judicial District. And what that does is funds allocated back to the county is around that $142,183. So I stand for questions, but our request is that the board approve the RBA today to sunset treatment court and approve the associated budget reallocations to the community corrections field budget and the veterans court budgets.
Questions? Molly, I do have a question. I wish I would have asked this before today, but you got the measure of remaining crime-free for 2 years. My perception of the treatment court, individual in treatment court, was that they were kind of surrounded with a bunch of different people to help them kind of get reestablished back in life, not just remain crime-free. But is that going to still continue to happen in a different way, or am I misperceiving something?
That is true. When you talk about the staffings and, you're coming to court like on a particular day, so you'll have the judge there and attorneys there, and so you have that wraparound services. That is a unique part of treatment court or specialty courts. What we do is, again, that doesn't look identical in the field, but we still are working with treatment providers. We're going to visit in treatment, facilities, let's say, right? We're coordinating with case managers, mental health workers. So we're doing those things. It may not just all be in court in a particular day, but we're certainly doing that sort of wraparound supports, especially for our high-risk individuals. When I was talking to the judges with Ron, with Chief Public Defender, Lindsay Sayoka, the other things are we can bring clients back to court, not even just for probation violation. It doesn't have to be punitive. It can be for review hearings. And so if we needed to bring somebody back to have a conversation about how it's going, or if we needed, let's say, some additional supports, the judges are open to that, and we have that mechanism to be able to do that without mandating that it happens necessarily every week. And those are the sorts of things we're doing on traditional probation anyway, which is why I think you're seeing that we have comparable results even, so it's slightly different, but it's still targeting the same things and utilizing community resources and other people to help us support clients in that work.
Okay, thank you. Question?
Yeah, this is one of those things that I feel like when it first kicked off, or even into its, glory days, so to speak, when there was more people to apparently pull from, people really had strong opinions on this, it felt like. And I remember going to some graduations and even just some ongoing, wasn't necessarily graduations, but hearings or whatever they were called at the time. And you'd get a judge who would come down from the ivory tower, you know, so to speak, and you could, and come in and speak life into some of these folks, and you could just see them stand up just a little bit more upright. I mean, it was a great thing to see. But then you see some of those same people that had really strong opinions, and then we see this data, and some of those same folks like, oh, we're not, I mean, we can do the same or similar with just a different approach with less money. So potentially better outcomes, or at least not worse, for lower cost. Is that a good summary?
I think that's a good summary, and I also think, again, the shifting over the years of what we're trying to do on traditional probation, we have, like, we've talked about cognitive behavioral groups, and we have graduations for those as well. And so there are other things that we celebrate, and our goal is to provide incentives and want people to want to change their lives regardless of which program they're in.
Yeah.
Whether it's a transition homes, whether it's treatment court, and whether it's traditional probation, that is what works, right? And so I think that if we continue moving towards all of our best practices within our criminal justice system, we continue hopefully to see this regardless of the program that you're in, because we want to celebrate people changing their lives.
Well, and I feel like this is one of those things that shows that we can stop doing things or pivot and adapt to something that still works. Not just, well, this is what we've always done, because we do want to be about, I mean, we are about hope and transformation in this place. And trying to get better outcomes for the lower cost is just a great byproduct, but if we can get better outcomes, that is going to lower the cost of overall government. So, and I sometimes do, I don't know if this highlights it or not, it's not specific to this, but I wonder sometimes out loud, are we, the collective we, doing different programs and touchy-feely, and it's kind of an emotional thing and makes us feel better, but doesn't always move the needle in people's lives and those lives that need to be changed? And I don't know if that was the case, but the data says that we can do this differently. We're willing to take that move because it's about changing people's trajectory, changing people's lives, transforming, giving hope. So, and we can stop doing things. So, so that's awesome. Last question, just a procedural or whatever, not procedural. The Vets One FTE grant, you know, we always ask, it's grant funded. Does that give us enough to cover all of the overhead things, the IT, or is it just a salary number? I forget from our workshop, or maybe we didn't cover that. And it's a minor, I don't want to major in the minors, but.
No, overall, well, part of the grant is the 30% match and levy, so we have that as just part of the grant, but it covers, I would have to, yes, I'm just looking at my associates here to make sure I'm about to say the accurate thing. So it's covering that. So that particular budget really does have a state support that helps us do that work. That isn't, the levy impact isn't as great on that one as it is like with treatment court as an example.
And sorry, one last one if I may. You talked about how the pool is smaller because of sentence, was it sentence guidelines or something?
That's just part of the story, but yeah, that's.
And so those folks that maybe aren't getting charged, and so they don't have this opportunity to either go through this new program or even the old, are they just sort of dangling, nope, you this is a smaller infraction, so see you, good luck? Or are they also getting some potential help? Are they sentenced to help type of thing, or are they just not in jail or not in the program?
So what I would say is that it's not that they're not getting charged. What happens is, okay, let's back up a minute. And Ron, if you want to jump in at any point, let me know. But in the past, let's say the sentencing guidelines would say that you're a commit to prison, right? So that is what is given to the judge as a recommendation based on all the information. And there might be a plea deal that says, hey, if you do treatment court, you don't have to go to prison. Well, some of those guidelines shifted where it's not the automatic commit to prison. They still end up on probation. So they're not, it's not like it's, and that's what we're doing though, is what I'm referring to, is this, whether or not you're in treatment court or not, we're still gonna help that person, right? And so, and it's a voluntary program. So some of these folks, we might want them in treatment court, but they may choose not to be as well. And they may choose to be on probation, you know, versus being on treatment court. So some of those levers have just shifted in terms of like why people may or may not be in treatment court right now. And so that particular pool has shrunk a little bit. And I think that And so, and our acceptance rate has shifted down too. So we just have, again, there's a kind of a multi-pronged thing going on that has put us in the particular situation, but we've always wanted to continue to help people regardless of which program that you get sentenced to.
Hope, right? I remember that's one of your words from way back when, that like,
That's
oh,
true.
I heard that, I like that. So thank you. I'm looking forward to the next couple of years to see what the data bears out here.
And I really want to thank you all for the support of Treatment Court over the years. I mean, I think what I want to leave saying is Treatment Court has been and is a good program. I said along the way in all these presentations, like, I'm really proud of Treatment Court, and I'm really proud of people that are probation officers and people on probation, and you all for programs like the transformation homes and everything else that we're attempting to do. So it's really, and it's my partners that we sit together and we think about how can we do this work, holding accountability and public safety while holding the space for people to get better, and that can be really challenging to do. And so for you all to do that and to make these decisions, it matters, and you can see that in the results. And so truly thank you to you all and everybody that has been part of Treatment Court, either now or previously. They've changed lives like no other. And so this is only to celebrate, I think, what has been accomplished and what we've done. And again, yeah, the hope of that we can continue doing this going forward.
Amen.
Okay, go ahead.
Mr. Chair, I want to say what I've been going to say was ditto to what Molly just said. Thank you, thank you, thank you, because that work that everybody who's involved with in Treatment Court has helped us change outcomes for a much bigger, broader pool. And that's what we're doing, and that's what we're celebrating today. So I just want everybody who has been involved in Treatment Court over the years to feel really good that years ago, going to Treatment Court graduations, I was very happy about it, thinking what a wonderful thing for this small group of people, but I didn't understand, and I'm just so happy that that has morphed into changing the world for a big group of people. So good job, congratulations, and with that, I'll offer a motion to adopt resolution number 2026-68.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. More discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Molly.
Thank you very much.
Item 7.2 is a resolution proclaiming April 19th to 25 as Volunteer Recognition Week. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kara Madsen with the Volunteer Program. I am here to give you a snapshot today of the volunteer program for 2025 and what we have accomplished, and then some numbers that go along with that. So first, I want to talk about the benefits of the volunteer program, and specifically to the benefits to the volunteers. There's a lot of different benefits that volunteers get out of volunteering, and benefits to improved health, to social and emotional growth. And I'll point this one out because we talk about increased happiness, reduced loneliness, and provides a sense of purpose. If you've talked to any of our new volunteers down there at the Wayfinding Information Desk, they are so excited to be a part of the organization, as they say, greeting people, helping them out. I had a lady call me this morning that just stopped in. It wasn't her shift to work, and she wanted to make sure she got signed up for next month and was wondering where the schedule was. Just so excited that she has a purpose now. She loves greeting customers and residents and then giving them that information. It also benefits career and networking. We have a lot of volunteers that do come in looking for opportunities to be able to volunteer and then utilize their skills in finding a position for themselves or moving forward. It's also a value to the community. So I'm sure we all know that. It strengthens the communities by building trust and supporting neighbors and each other. It also helps in filling gaps that we have all over the community in areas with nonprofits, some here in government, and that sort that we can go ahead and fill with volunteers. The significant information about volunteering, it helps to calculate the impact of volunteer labor, which is essential for grant application. Public health uses that a lot when they're filling out grant applications. I'll get a call wanting to know how many volunteers they have that they can put that in their grants. For donor reports and also for budgetary planning. So I will work go to the next slide, and this shows the volunteer hours for 2025. So it gives a breakdown. This is how we have it broken down currently in our Better Impact software. Advisory boards, as you can see, their numbers, community partnerships, health and human services, jail programs, libraries, and on down the ladder there. Community partnerships, I will speak to a little bit. That is an area that we are now capturing volunteer hours for people that we send volunteers to, partnerships that we work with. I spoke last year about the CAP agency. Just recently did another recruitment campaign for them for volunteers for delivering meals. We brought in 21 volunteers and sent them over to CAP to help start coordinating rides for more delivery programs. Jail programs, I will speak to that a little bit. The jail programs, we have an opportunity that we are currently utilizing with our volunteers that go into the jails. And we can break it down in our Better Impact software to show us, for example, a volunteer that is coming in and is working for Destiny Moms, and then in turn is under the umbrella of Damascus Way. So we have some opportunities there to track nonprofit volunteer needs separate from just a standard volunteer, Sue Miller, that's coming in to volunteer. So that's giving us some added data that down the road is helping out. We're getting questions about some of that information. Then we move down to an area for miscellaneous volunteers. So what falls into that category is we have people that do water sampling. So they're basically under environmental health, and we don't have a breakdown area for them. We have people that are moving individuals. So they're moving maybe out of homelessness into an apartment. They need some help with their belongings, that sort. That's where we have volunteers. So that's just a snapshot of our miscellaneous volunteers. I will also point out Health and Human Services, just because Molly had just spoken to it a moment ago. We do have in that area an area that we are tracking our volunteers that work with the Veterans Court. So we have about a dozen volunteers that go and help the veterans. They're there as a mentor. They work specific timeframes with them from month to month. So those are areas that we are capturing there. With those numbers and capturing everything, we have 31,526, so 31,526 volunteer hours total. You'll see that bottom list. We also have internships. So internships run through the volunteer office because they are non-paid internships. But in that number, we had 21 internships this last year, which is very exciting for Scott County. People that were giving us anywhere from 48 hours to 600 hours. So that's something that we're working towards, is offering more internship opportunities for college interns. And I know years ago, Commissioner Albrecht had brought that up, how important internships are. And it's exciting to see, I can go back and look and see of those internships who we actually hired down the road. So we have a handful of interns that we actually hired on later to bring back as actual employees. This is the next slide. This is the 2025 value of the volunteer report. Now I will say the new statistics come out every year this week, and of course they came out this morning. So this information is outdated because I turned this in last week. But for 2024, the value of the volunteer hour was $38.16. It was updated this morning to $39.80 for 2025. So I want to just preface this, and I know we get a lot of questions about that dollar figure. This is encompassing not only the people that are at the library shelving books, but it's also prefacing attorneys, the medical field, volunteers that are coming in to help us at that higher level. So that's where they're coming up with that rate. It is captured by independent sector, and it's data from the Do Good Institute is the name of the organization that captures that. So here is the volunteer hours tallied by that value of volunteer, and again, this is at the 2024 rate. But this is the first year that we've surpassed $1,203,032. So this is a big, big number. Very exciting. It speaks to what our volunteer program is doing in supporting not only Scott County, but supporting the Scott County community. And again, as I've spoken, we are only capturing about 70 to 75% of the volunteer hours. There are volunteers out there that are doing good work for us. They are not reporting their hours. Most of it is because out of the kindness of their heart, they're just doing this to feel good and feed their own souls. So with that, I'm going to ask first if there's any questions, and then I will move on to the resolution.
Do you have a question? Go ahead. On interns, are we sometimes in competition with other jurisdictions that pay a little stipend for interns? Or?
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure there is. There are organizations that do pay for internships, and oftentimes, yes, interns will be looking for a pay involved with that. I have not looked at those statistics. Many of the people that we have coming to us are looking for, they want the hours for their internship. So that to them is first and foremost. And many of them are Scott County residents. So they're coming here because they live here and they want to intern with the county.
Sure. I'm wondering in the future if there's traditional areas that are hard to recruit or hard to get staff for in maybe tech areas or whatever, if it would make sense to try and attract interns in those really hard to hire positions or area, with some kind of stipend, I think it's something worthy of exploring, for competing with IT interns from, place where they pay a stipend, or something like that.
Yes. Yes, I'm sure if that's something leadership wants to do, we can definitely look at that and see what is out there and what we are competing against. I very rarely hear somebody asking when they are reaching out for an internship if there is any pay involved. They're really just looking for those hours that they need in order to get their degree.
Yeah. One thing that I made a mental note, many years we did the Future Leaders. And I don't know if anybody can point to somebody that is an employee that went through Future Leaders. I'm probably wrong in thinking nobody.
If I'm not mistaken, Sarah Geffrey.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, you got one.
Yep.
Well, it was encouraging to hear some of the interns, seems more fruitful, more interns became employees.
Yeah, yep,
Anyhow,
exactly.
Go ahead with the resolution if there's no more comment or question.
All right, go with.
Oh, one we got one.
Sure.
I know this is the, probably the easiest, or that's not the right phrase, but like the most, whatever, measure to measure. With all of those different categories, and I don't know how we would necessarily do it, but again, kind of piggybacking off our last presentations, like I would love to see, and maybe it's just anecdotes, I don't know, about things that really led to hope and transformation. I don't hate to keep ringing that bell, I love ringing that bell. And I don't know how we do that. I mean, I know this is a good indicator or an indicator, but is there a way to, capture those stories? Because in all of that time, it isn't just that people volunteered and whatever. I mean, there's some significant things that happened.
Capture the stories from the volunteers, you're saying?
Yes,
How
and
it is.
somehow, because this is a big deal, and I think it's probably a bigger deal than we know.
Yes, I mean, that is my world. I mean, when you're looking for numbers and statistics, this is about as good as it gets.
Right.
Because it's really from the stories. What not only the organization is receiving, but also what that volunteer is receiving. And that's why I brought up, the wayfinding piece.
Yes.
We will be part of a Scott County Delivers, September 15th, I think it is. We have Scott County Delivers with community engagement and volunteering, so I can try to pull some of that information together and get some more details for you for that.
Well, and I know, like, whenever we're talking about different programs, you always hear like, oh, this unbelievable thing happened, and a lot of times, I shouldn't say a lot of times, oftentimes it could be the exception. It's like that, on the commercial, results may vary. I took this pill, I'm still 80 pounds overweight. So I'm not looking for those, but like, what are the things that we're really getting done through this? I just think it's a great story to tell. And I'd love to see more of that somehow, some way.
Perfect.
If
Sounds
I could make
good.
another comment, and I think you have one coming up here, but, you know, how we celebrate and thank volunteers. You know, for the most recent years, we've had sort of a picnic, hot dog, hamburger, picnic kind of thank you experience. I think the prior one was, I know it's more expensive, more work, but where we had the breakfast at the golf course.
Oh, yeah.
And we celebrated, we recognized people, there was more of a volunteer story, there was a program. I think it really celebrated the volunteer community. It wasn't just a thank you. There was, I think, a lot of benefit to that over our current experience. So that's just my feedback. Obviously, I won't be here next year if you change it, but go ahead.
I was just going to piggyback on Commissioner Beer. I think the residents' report just came out. It's wonderful. It has a lot of great stories. And I know we've featured volunteers in the past, but that might be a great residents' report feature to be on the list for next year to look at, where you'd take 3 different volunteers from 3 very different areas in the county, talk about those experiences, but then also talk about how volunteers really impact that department. I could see that being a really nice feature.
Great, thank you for that.
All right, you're going to read the resolution?
Would you like me to?
Yes.
Okay. So I'm gonna take my glasses off here. So Resolution 2026-73 proclaiming April 19th through the 25th, 2026 as Volunteer Recognition Week. Whereas over half of all Minnesotans engage in their communities, impact their neighborhoods, and enhance the world through a multitude of volunteer services. And whereas through this selfless dedication, innumerable lives are changed, families restored, neighborhoods revitalized, and individuals reinvigorated, which in turn brings all communities together in the pursuit of the health, vitality, and sustainability of Scott County. And whereas Scott County volunteers generously and readily step forward to volunteer at area libraries, bring self-help, faith-based, and educational programs into the Scott County Jail, work with youth, families, and seniors in mentoring and other support roles, transport citizens, engage in civic action for local and county government by responding to emergencies and disasters, and serve on committees and advisory boards. And whereas this level of involvement provides substantial savings and benefit to Scott County taxpayers and its citizens each year. And whereas it is both fitting and proper to recognize our dedicated citizen volunteers who have demonstrated their commitment to the betterment of the community throughout the year, now therefore be it resolved by the Board of Commissioners in and for the County of Scott, Minnesota, that the week of April 19th to the 25th, 2025 is proclaimed Volunteer Recognition Week in Scott County.
All right. That is a resolution. Now, did you make a motion on that already? No, okay.
I'll make a motion for that.
Okay, motion and a second. Any more discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you so much
Thank
for all your good
you.
work. Okay, we're on to the amended item 7.3, which is authorizing a letter to our Met Council reps to oppose the regional solicitation. Go ahead.
Good morning, Commissioners. I apologize for the lateness of this. I think between joint board meetings, NEMT, the Lower Min, HHS funding, Trunk Highway 13, all needing some attention, we kind of lost this one in the details, so I apologize for that. As you know, in February, you authorized a letter to the Metropolitan Council regarding the regional solicitation. And you asked them made comments on several things and asked for them to have a review done. We have also been working with our partners to the northwest, Carver, and to the east, Dakota. Dakota is having the same discussion this morning about forwarding a letter to their Met Council members. But you had requested a look at federal policy that we have the DOT, US DOT and Federal Highway take a look at the transportation policy plan and the criteria. They decided not to do that. They did not follow through on that, so we did. We have forwarded your letter to the Secretary of Transportation. We also objected to some of the community connections, considerations as part of the scoring criteria. And we received back in the letter that they did not feel that the community considerations really just honed in on certain neighborhoods or harm. So I did want to pull the portion about community data and context, and to score high, you have to have data on the cultural history of communities. You have to describe any past and present transportation harms to communities, and you have to describe how a low-income resident expressed a need to be able to walk to a healthcare destination or some type of destination. So as I think Commissioner Ulrich had made known in his discussions as they were going through this entire process, it really focuses on the adjacent land and not the people using the facility. And so one of the things that we're commenting back on is the Met Council is really supposed to be looking at regional infrastructure and facilities, and that sometimes those types of decisions aren't always in alignment with every neighborhood, but they have state and regional-wide impacts that are extremely important. And so we put a letter together asking council members Barber and Wolf to vote no tomorrow. We would forward this immediately on the Met Council's 2026 regional solicitation. We cite the fact that we still do not believe, based on federal transportation policy, that this is in compliance with federal transportation policy. We also state we have always felt community engagement is important and that it is our transportation plan. We have approved corridor studies that hold multiple local meetings, and as elected officials, you have to make those final decisions for constituents. We also cited the Technical Advisory Committee, the funding and programming, approved a reduced weighting for the community considerations by a score of 15-6. And the Technical Advisory Committee is made up of the agencies, counties, city staff that deal with transportation. But then it was not supported during the regional solicitation scoring criteria, but when they were told that the Met Council staff indicated to them the Met Council was going to get 20%, really no matter what, they just moved it forward with a couple options for the TAB. At the TAB meeting in January, 6 of the 7 county elected representatives, 3 of the 5 of the city elected officials there, and the MnDOT representative opposed the scoring proposal. So again, this was moved forward by appointed members of the TAB, not the elected officials of the TAB. And so our final concern on this, as you can see in the letter, is the community considerations. It's really narrowly defined, and it's very subjective. I'm not even sure how a county staff person is going to score something like this. So the person that can tell the best story is going to get the most points, and is really what this is going to come down to. And so we would ask them to vote no. We would ask them to have a review by the Transportation Secretary on the relevance of this under current policy. And again, push the issue, which we have been discussing for many years, of a majority of unelected officials making this decision. And so that is what the letter is. We think it is very consistent with your request from your February 17th authorization, and the draft the draft resolution in front of you, not RBA, but resolution, is very short and to the point. That it will be discussing it on April 22nd. You have adopted this 2050 transportation plan. We requested you to review the regional solicitation for compliance. You did not honor that request. And where these regional criteria were approved by a majority of unelected officials at the January meeting, with 6 of 7, again, the data, We are asking them not to support this and hold the release of the solicitation until it can be reviewed. And so that's what we're bringing forward for discussion today.
So if I could make a preliminary, and then we'll take it to everybody, but what difference does this make? Okay, let me give you an example. We had a project that, 282.9 and 169 that finished out of the money by about 5 or 6 points, which we lost on the old scoring formula that fits into this community considerations. Now, in debate at the tab, Mary Jo McGuire said, well, why should we fund that project? And I said, because we've always given each county a project. We've never deviated from that. And this is the only project in Scott County. That's the only reason we got it funded, because we were out of the money. And, you know, Deb Barber would, and she said it many times, would say we did a fabulous job on community consideration for that, you know, community considerations, the old way of doing it, on that project. But yet we lost enough points to be out of the money. So it does make a huge difference. And this community considerations is really the only how in the entire solicitation. Everything else is a what. What are you gonna do? Describe what you wanna do. You know, it's a road, it's a transit, what are you building? Well, and this is how you're gonna go about it. And harms, you know, is a big thing in this. And they're doing this harm study, and that's gonna come back. And the tab's been kept kinda in the dark about that. I think we have 2 more presentations coming up about the harm study. But I said in this community considerations, well, Scott County's gonna have to make up harms that we can fix. I mean, just, you know, we're gonna have to make stuff up. So we score points by fixing something we made up. I mean, it's just crazy. Okay, other comments, questions, whatever.
Yeah, I would add that in the transportation policy plan, there are almost 200 references to revoked executive orders that heavily influence the scoring criteria that you are talking about.
Well, now, I didn't want to get this far into this, but in these studies and in these committees, you can predict where they're going to end up even a year ahead of time. I mean, it was, you know, this is where we're going. I know we're going to get there regardless of what we think, the electeds think. We're going to get there. And that we got there. And they admitted that this was, I couldn't believe they did it. They said this is a rebranding of DEI. Which, how does that factor into building a road? We're building roads or transit for everybody. Doesn't matter what your economic status is or your racial status. We want the roads and transit for everybody. In fact, the one form of transit that is best for absolutely everybody is a microtransit that we're doing now. Anybody can call and get a microtransit ride, you know, that'll take them to where they want to go within the county or Dakota County, or take them to the transit station for a ride somewhere else. So, I mean, we're trying to meet the needs of everybody. I don't know how we make this so much about other stuff. Anyhow, that's my comment on that.
Did you want to make the motion?
Well, I thought maybe there would be some others that would want to talk about it. What's that? Go ahead.
Yeah, I'd love to hear, can you talk a little bit more? You said Dakota's talking about this today. I mean, we had the Met Council reform, we had the roadshow in this room, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago, like, oh, this is gonna be the time that Met Council's, I mean, this is just such a sore spot, I guess. You know, a non-elected body serving at the, you know, whim of the governor. Nothing's going to change till an election, it seems like. I mean, we need to do this. We need to do this. Because it does seem like the Met Council and part of the state is just hell-bent on transit being like a dinosaur. I just keep saying that, just, we're building dinosaurs versus like the next generation transportation system. I don't understand why they're so stuck on that, I don't. But trying to get them to listen, a non-elected body, serving at the pleasure of the governor, I mean, I know we're saying all the things that most of us, if not all of us, have said and thought before. I don't get what drives them, because it feels like the numbers, well, not feels like, bears out. Some of these systems, transit systems, it would be cheaper to just buy people cars. Like, I wish I was being dramatic. That's just the truth. Versus all of this type of spending on things that really don't work in 2026 and beyond. So, yeah, I mean, I support this letter, obviously. I support Met Council reform. I'm not against a planning body, but good night. It's a planning body that has some ears, and we can disagree, but at least get to a point to where we can have conversations that we can agree to disagree, as opposed to just, I don't know, fake listening. That's my opinion.
All right, we'll have more discussion. I'll read the resolution. We'll get that on the table at least. It's Resolution 2026-43, authorizing submittal of a letter to Scott County's Metropolitan Council members regarding the 2026 regional solicitation. That's the motion. Maybe we can take a motion in a second. We'll continue the discussion if there's more. So,
Mr. Chairman, can I just correct you? It should be 2026-100.
okay, all right.
I'll second it.
We have a motion, a second, now more discussion. Go ahead. Anybody?
I'll comment. This week I testified at the House on Bill number 4449, and a lot of that was regarding the power of Met Council to do these things that are outlined. They talked about Met Council taking eminent domain, being authorized to do eminent domain on transit areas for housing and build up the transit. They talked about the fact that they can penalize us for road projects if they don't align with the things that we feel is necessary in our community. And it takes away all of our local comments and being able to talk about transit and transportation in Scott County and the other counties. There was also a bill at the Senate yesterday that aligned with that too. So I think that this is a conversation. I think transit has to be discussed. I think the way that it is currently needs some adjustments, but I think taking away the local control of our communities, of our counties and our cities for transit is not good. So that's why I'll be supporting this. But I think that the conversation is going to be a lot bigger in 2027
Okay.
at the legislature.
More comments, or thank you for that. Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, motion carries. We're on to item 8, which is committee reports and commissioner updates, and we'll start with Mr. Brecky.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. April 7th was our last board meeting. We all attended the workshops after the board meeting. Also that day was the PROACT open house and a PROACT board meeting that I attended. You've asked me to be a liaison to that board, so I try and attend a board meeting every couple years. That board and the staff are just so happy with their new location. Really, PROACT as an organization has invested a lot of money into that permanent location and to making this move and being in our community able to serve residents. So it's just a wonderful thing. I think for those of us who came on this board 10 years ago, that was the big thing as we're entering is the transition of those day services from the county to a nonprofit provider. And we were doing a great job, but they've been able to really build, expand, and do a better job. I mean, do more. I don't want to say better, just do more. And it was a great event, board meeting. The board was appreciative of our support and interest, but also they're rocking and rolling and building and want to grow in the Scott County area. So great success. I guess still on April 7th, then I attended Blakely Township meeting. Lots of concerns there about County Road 51, which, as you remember, was scheduled to be turned back over the last probably decade. We did not turn it back. Instead, we improved the asphalt portion, which could end up being a park entrance road. We declared the gravel portion minimum maintenance. And then the Transportation Department has blocked off that road to make sure the minimum maintenance part is not used very often. You only can enter from the south. So there's some concerns there. Staff did a good job of attending that meeting and talking about our rationale on that project. April 8th had MICA board meeting. April 9th had county and state SNAP, Medicaid, and LTSS steering committee meeting. Also, April 9th was the quarterly meeting with the mayor of Shakopee, the city administrator, and county administrator, just touching base on things going on in both jurisdictions. April 9th was the CAP annual fundraising dinner and event. I will say it was a very good success. It was held over in Carver County at Bavaria Downs. Good participation from Scott and Carver County, probably the largest event that CAP's had in the recent future. They did a good job. April 10th had a Big Four meeting of the executive committees for counties, cities, townships, and schools. The whole top of the conversation really is things going on at the legislature and the impacts to all of our jurisdictions. April 10th was AMC Executive Committee. April 13th had a meeting with some other county reps who are involved with direct care and treatment committees, trying to gather more and make sure that Commissioner Halverson of Dakota and Commissioner Jabin Singh of Ramsey, who are our reps on the direct care and treatment committee, have more opportunities to talk with counties about the state hospital and making it so that they serve our folks and they're not sitting in jail. So continue to work on that. April 14th had a discussion with DHS and counties about the MnChoices backlog and talking through some different solutions and things that are being worked on. April 14th was my monthly meeting with the county administrator, also CAP board meeting. April 15th, I testified at the Senate Health and Human Services Committee on SNAP modernization and MAFPA, all things that the Senate bill at least has some of what we've requested in it. And so it's just really important over these next couple of weeks that we continue to push and if anything passes both houses, that it contains that language from the Senate bill. April 16th was the Long-Term Services and Supports Advisory Council. I'm just going to say I've talked a little bit about the challenges of that council, and some of the folks on that council representing people who are served and providers want there to be penalties to counties for appeals that are made to the state and then overturned. And it's not a happy discussion, and I think people think that counties are this living being that we can poke and take money from and then they're gonna do differently. So really trying to talk about the work our staff does, the fact that we're interpreting the law and trying to adhere to the law and not commit fraud or waste, and that sometimes appeals happen. So we're in a challenging place there, so that'll probably be the topic of the next couple meetings. April 17th, Scale Executive Committee. April 17th was also AMC board meeting. Yesterday, met with some of our zoning staff, reps from the city of Jordan, and a resident. There's a proposed IUP coming up at Planning Commission for some mining to go on the border of St. Lawrence Township and the city of Jordan. A lot of concerns going on right now. So just trying to get those concerns to our planning and zoning folks so that they can be adequately presented to Planning Commission when they present the whole picture. And I know when I came in, I think it was Katie who says there's lots of next door things going up, and I've been mentioned a bit. So just reminding folks I met with yesterday and that I'm getting emails from that, of course, our job here on a project like that is to wait until it comes in front of us. We can't say, we shouldn't be for or against, because we haven't heard all the information yet, the staff recommendations, the reports. So trying to make sure to get communications in, but our board is not saying yes or no until it comes in front of us. And then this morning had a monthly meeting with Health and Human Services Director Barb Dahl and Commissioner Brennan. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Wolf.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On the 7th, we had the PROACT open house, and even before we started up, there was a couple of years of more fireworks that, you know, because once people heard that you were around, that we were thinking on doing something different. You know, the kids, the children of those parents, they like structure, and when they heard that there was going to be any type of change, boy, things, yeah, got a little heated. Anyhow, then on the 8th, MESB, I-35, we had a budget meeting, and we're going to get a few bucks back from that because our pot was a little bit high on dollars, so we're going to cut back a few bucks on the dues and give some money back. And then that next day in the morning, I-35 Solutions, we had a speaker talk on the stats of traffic patterns in the area. That night, Elko New Market and Spring Lake Township. Spring Lake Township, there was a riding arena that there a couple residents with 10 acres want to put in, and they recommended it with conditions, although there was a number of neighbors that didn't like that idea. Then on the 10th, the scale, and Michael Thompson gave the property tax assessment type of spiel, and I think I saw that thing 6 times now. And I asked when I was at Prior Lake if I need, Mike, I said, Mike, you can go home, I'll give it. Anyhow, on the 13th, Planning and Zoning, and they approved the horse riding arena. And also they had out at Severs, they're going to do some exotic parsley or marijuana growing. And yeah, that brought out, a few people were, I don't know if they were upset about it or not, but, you know, they, I think they could have used a little bit of it, some of them, anyhow. On the 14th, Prior Lake, and that was the assessor gave a taxes presentation there and trends over in Prior Lake. On the 15th, the insurance committee met, and it was, I thought was one of the better meetings I've been to of that committee. You know, when it comes to, you know, moving up deductibles and whatever, everybody has their own idea of, you know, whatever, and I think the deductible should be moved up, but then there's some people who would use that deductible every year. So if we moved it to 5,000, there's some people that have kids or spouses or themselves that would use it every year, but some people don't. So, you know, it wouldn't quite be so fair. So I saw that through a different lens, but the bigger the deductible, the cheaper insurance would probably be. So anyhow, we talked about the joining up with some of the cities and Carver. I think that's still maybe a little lukewarm at best. And then last night, Credit River. That's my report.
All right, thank you. Commissioner Brennan.
April 7th was the PROACT tour that's already been discussed. I also attended the City of Shakopee City Council meeting. April 8th was the Scott County Transportation Committee meeting. There was a discussion regarding amphitheater traffic in the harm study. April 8th was MICA. April 9th was a meeting with the Shakopee Mayor and Administrator. April 9th was the CAP Agency Gala. April 10th was SCALE. April 10th was my meeting with Leslie Vermillion. April 13th, I testified at the House Committee on Transportation, Finance, and Policy. And I talked a little bit about this already, but Scott County supports coordinating transit and roadways, but it has to be done in partnership, not mandates and not without a county voice. Counties must have a role in the framework development, review, and resolution. This bill undermines local planning authority, and an example that was talked about was an area that McCouncil desires to have a transit line, and anything around that area could be taken by eminent domain, for housing. Any county road project could be subject to penalties if the project is deemed inconsistent with their plan. Counties lose access to regional transportation sales tax revenue without an appeal process. The bill prohibits counties from advancing roadway projects that are deemed inconsistent with the framework. Yesterday, the Senate had a similar discussion. I feel that Scott County and the city should have a conversation about transit and confirm what is important for our cities and counties. We have completed a unified transit plan in like 20 and 21. And that was during COVID. So the post-COVID impacts on transit were unknown at that time. I think that Scott County and our scale partners need to be able to have a strong position on transit in 2027 and collectively be prepared for these conversations at the legislation. April 14th was the CDA. 3 of the 10 Moraine Edition homes are almost complete. 2 homes are set to close in April, and there's an interest in the 3rd home. There's a formal ribbon cutting on May 27th for this development. April 15th was the Lower Minnesota River Watershed District. April 16th, I had a meeting with Lisa Brodsky, and April 21st, or this morning, was a meeting with Barb Dahl.
Thank you.
That's it.
Commissioner Beer.
Thank you very much. 4/7, post-board workshop. Later that afternoon, the ProAct open house, which it made me think 10 years ago, that was a huge deal. New options, because I remember I was sitting in about your chair, and it was the union-sponsored debate. You probably went through that too. And one of the questions was, what committees do you want to serve on? I said, I'm running on less committees, but that was a sidebar. And then they asked, right. Well, hey, what can be done with an email? But then one of the questions was, well, what do you think about new options? I said, I'll tell you what my thoughts are after I figure out what that is. Found out really, really fast what that was. And I remember, I don't know if it was year 1 or 2, we did the road show to Egan. I think was it Steve Ditzler? Was that? Steve Ditzler. Just a peach of a guy. And I remember sitting there asking him, like, hey, because it was a big deal. It was one of my first, here's government telling government, you can't be a provider and also receive payment, because that would just be, as if we had a Leering Center or a daycare. But it was government running, did I say that out loud? It was a government-run New Options, which was working pretty darn good, also receiving payments from different government jurisdictions. What are we talking about here? Seriously, is there really fraud going on? No. Good things were happening, but the building kind of stunk. Regulations were changing, rules and regs. ProAct and others probably could have done a better job at, moving from there. And I remember asking Steve, hey, what would it look like if you guys were to put together an RFP? They didn't have a fast track to this, to really take this over and do it. And we all remember how, I don't want to say touch and go, but it was a very, very fragile, highly charged and rightfully so situation that has really gone well 10 years later. I mean, that's just one of the things where it's like, wow, this really worked out well. For an incredibly medically fragile was the term, group of folks. So it was great to see them in their new digs. 8th constituent meeting, the 10th scale. I had to phone into that as I was gone for a few days. 13th, we had some preliminary chit chat for testifying that was going to be coming up with MESB, because I testified the next, 2 days later on the 15th. But it was on Armor, Allied Radio Matrix for emergency response, and then CAD to CAD, the computer-aided dispatch. And so MESB, Metro Emergency Services Board, so we didn't want to be speaking for just Metro or just state, so how do we want to frame that? Because there was some concern. We all know how turfy this tends to be, just is the human nature of it. And so the idea of CAD to CAD, the way we think, I think, countywide is what's a great regional or statewide approach for many of the things we do? But the scope of that was a little tighter. So wanted to make sure that we were speaking correctly on that of, yes, some interim CAD to CAD work, but then also the long-term, wouldn't it be neat if we were all had on the same codes and all in the same system, and your system talked to my system in different cities and counties, and the state patrol, so there were no issues of literally having to phone other public safety organizations to get folks on site to calls, which is just crazy in 2026. Feels like a transit system, but sorry, not sorry. So anyway, on the 15th, we testified there was a steer bill and a Whitty bill on armor, so we did that on the 15th. And the gist of that was really trying to find dedicated and sustainable funding for that infrastructure, trying to get it off levy. It's a statewide system. Let's run it the way it should be run as a statewide system, not a patchwork. So that was on the 15th. Then on the 16th, had a meeting with our outreach dude, I'm gonna call him, where's he, Michael Bergstrom, just talking about, you know, how that's going, where we at. 17th was the AMC board meeting in St. Paul, which worked out great because then there was Senate testimony that we weren't sure this was, the House was, wow, just the way it was set up, boom, 3 o'clock, bam, we were on, boom, we were out. The Senate Judiciary was a little bit different than that. It just wasn't set up quite the same, and it was kind of a last-minute ad. So some folks were there at 9:30. Thankfully, had an AMC board meeting, left there and walked 2 blocks to the Senate building and was able to testify on 3 bills. The Seeberger and Clark introduced those bills. Also, again, on armor, but not only the infrastructure, like the towers, the buildings, the batteries, that type of infrastructure, but also the radio side of it as well that's riding on that infrastructure. But then also CAD to CAD. So that was on the 17th. On the 20th, I had my administrator meeting, monthly administrator meeting, and scale service delivery, which topic, of course, many topics, but one, of course, the insurance pool. And then when I left that meeting, service delivery, I went across the river and I had a discussion with one of the Carver County Commissioners and another non-Gallagher, I'll call it, insurance individual, just to hear just a different perspective on what it is we're talking about, captive versus, you know, open versus pool versus all of those types of things, which was a very good conversation. So that was on the 20th, and that completes my report.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, can I
I think he
say-
has too many committees, don't you?
Oh, thank you, thank you.
Can I say one thing? I think Tracy sent us an email on some letter that was sent to us by a couple, right? And there was no name on it. I did not read it, because I don't read letters without names on, so I don't know what it was about, but if you send a letter or an email, put your name on it. That's my, sorry, thanks.
All right. On the 7th, the county board workshop, the 8th, the county transportation committee, and I think we are watching the amphitheater traffic, especially when they have a major headliner on a weekend, you know, on a Friday night. We'll see if they're adequately prepared or if they're gonna need some emergency help. I was gonna say something about the harm study. I probably said enough or more than enough already. Staff, I asked for a sort of a deep dive, excuse me, on the transportation policy plan, both in terms of how it was based on executive orders and what were, you know, how much DEI and what was in there. And there's like over 300 references to DEI and all kinds of synonyms and social justice. I mean, it's just, for a transportation plan, it's kind of unusual. The 9th, the MVTA ribbon cutting, this is for the bus garage in Burnsville. There was 150 people there. It was really well attended. Pretty exciting event. Angie Craig spoke, and then Senator Klobuchar gave a video reading. Just a little note on microtransit. First of all, I said something maybe was not entirely accurate about microtransit earlier, about getting a ride with microtransit. That applies to the opt-out cities. So, you know, Shakopee, Savage, Prior Lake, you can get a microtransit. Outside of that, we have Hopscotch, which is hopefully, you know, gonna meet kind of those needs, but it's not the same. It's not microtransit, although it functions that way. But anyhow, microtransit increased by 20% in March for MVTA and exceeded 20,000 rides for the first time. On the 10th scale, for 13th meeting with Jeff Tate and the STA board meeting later that same day. Fish programming committee, and they were trying to work, so we're always about 6 months ahead with programs, and we're there. They're at least
through December, maybe a little beyond that. Met Council tab stuff, express fares are gonna be $3 at all times now, and that, once Metro Transit sets their fares, all the providers have to follow the same fare at state law. So $3 at all times, so I think in peak it was 3.25, and non-peak it was $2.75, they're gonna be $3 at all times. There's $1 fare for youth up to 18 and seniors, for all the providers. That does not apply, these rates do not apply to microtransit. The 17th Scale Executive Committee, the 20th, the Scale Service Delivery Committee, there was talking more about a variety of topics, but the insurance pool came up. I think we learned that New Prague is out. And I think we always knew that Savage was not likely to come in early or if at all, but that's to be seen. Fish Executive Committee, that same day as well. They have 2 people that they're pretty high on to interview for that support position. That's the end of my report. Go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick question. You talked about was it the Connect? That was that small van, right? That's available in the opt-out cities.
Yeah, MVTA Connect, it's either that small van or there's an electric one that's
Right.
more in Dakota County.
Yeah, so those are for the opt-outs. I was just, it made me think, like, wouldn't it be neat, like in the non-opt-outs or more in the bigger city urban areas, if there was like a service that, I don't know, had like cars and vans with drivers that you could just get an app and like you could get a ride and almost anywhere, anytime, with a driver or without a driver? Wouldn't that be neat if there was some service available today that could do something like that under the auspices of transportation? That would be so neat. So if somebody could get on a driver, like almost like, I don't know, I'd call it Uber or Lyft or, and then run it through a government type program, but, or driverless,
Why
driverless.
don't we have a board 5-minute presentation on Hopscotch, just so we get more awareness of that. If you could have them come to just, I'm not talking about workshop, just in that 5 minutes or something like that.
Thanks.
Update on that, that would be good. Okay, county administrator update.
Mr. Chairman, yeah, thank you. Last Friday, we had a really good joint meeting, I thought, with Carver and Dakota leadership. I want to thank Brad and Danny and Katie and Barb and Jake. They did a great job leading some of the committees along with the other counties, bringing back, I think, some joint areas that we can continue to explore and work on. And so I'm excited about that meeting. It led to the NEMT letter, which was shared with all of you, that all 3 of us signed on to, and Barb did a nice job putting that together and then actually editing it by some comments from the other counties. So I thought it was a really productive meeting, a really good meeting. We are prepping for Trunk Highway 13. We've been working on this since about 1996. This is the original scale TED project. This is the last real push for that. I think Commissioner Brecky is going to testify. I'm hoping Commissioner Helverson or Workman does from Dakota. Because if they fund this, we won't be back. We're done. We're moving this thing forward. And so it's a good thing with Nicollet Avenue moving on the Burnsville side over this. And so I think the 2 of us working together. We have also, we discussed at services yesterday, both Commissioner Beer and Ulrich were there, where I raised with the city administrators this discussion on transit and looking at what is it the communities need. We have a letter prepared for Senator Dibble's committee, if it was ever heard, about the opt-out elimination, which says, you know, we don't support it going to Met Council, but the opt-out model is antiquated and has its set of issues about efficiency and how we operate as well. And so that this needs to have a discussion within the region about how we provide transit so we are more efficient in how we do that. So I think all of you are in agreement, and what is that opportunity to allow to have discussion? But we'll keep pushing it at services. The transit is one of them that we probably need to talk about sooner or later as we prepare for 2027. I would agree with Commissioner Brennan on that. This is not going to go away. And so we need to be prepared for that discussion. So thanks to our staff. They did a really nice job last Friday.
On transit, I would just say this, we are not the lead dog on transit in Scott County. It's based on the old property tax and then it went to Invest, but the skin in the game, it's Shakopee, Savage, and Prior Lake. And, and we are supportive, we've been good partners, we've been better partners than Dakota. Dakota left MBTA board for quite a while, and we have provided money for weekend and evening service, but we are, like I say, we are not the main leaders on that. The transit plan that we have, we went through a process of updating that, and it was quite a while ago. Lisa Freeze led us through that. I know Commissioner Brennan's mentioned that. That needs to be probably refreshed and go through a process again. I think we almost took a year doing that. But I don't know how long ago that was. It's a while ago, so probably needs refreshing. All right, recess for a attorney-client meeting.
We do not need to do that, Mr. Chair.
Yay. All right, we're going to adjourn in just a second, but I'll read off what we're doing in the workshop. We got the Scott Soil and Water Conservation District. We're going to be talking about 360 Communities, Pinnacle Services, Canvas Health, and then the Commissioner Round Robin. That's our workshop. Take a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, motion carries. Thank you.